Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Chow, and I'm the founder and CEO of Micromoments Institute. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the research behind physiology, cognition in the brain, the science behind high-quality connections, and really what it means to have your attention on micromoments. So the context of this is micromoments really matter, and through having a micromoments mindset, we'll be able to cultivate connection and have more agency throughout our days. So first, let's take a pause. You've been in many different sessions and probably on the computer throughout your day. So take a moment to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Find your feet. Feel where the ground is supporting you and the chair is supporting you. Let your arms, your hands relax in your lap and your shoulders roll back and down a little bit. Take a moment to draw a deep breath in and inhale all the way out, 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 out. Taking 2 more breaths here, feeling what it's like to notice the quality and understand where you are and your breath is at. Taking 1 more deep breath here, inhale all the way up and all the way out. Take a moment to gently open your eyes, come back into your room. So take a moment to consider here, what do you do to ground yourself and stay centered throughout your day? We're in this society where there's a lot going on in the world, a lot in flux. We have our day-to-days and everything going on in our lives. So as you notice yourself taking a few deep breaths, what came up for you? How can you use that as a way to take a moment, ground yourself, and come back into your body? So I'm going to start off with a quote, and let's keep this in mind throughout this conversation, which is between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So you'll see this throughout as we talk about this idea of micromoments and think about how we can use that concept to invite more attention and clarity throughout our days. So I want to present to you a concept. Imagine that you're watching a movie and there can be many, many frames that create the whole story arc. But within each frame, each image, there's so much richness to the details that are happening in the scene. The colors, the scene, the setup, the furniture. And there's also everything going on in the background. Often when we pause to notice, we see so many of these tiny little details that may be seemingly ordinary or just go into the background. But all of these tiny little scenes and frames are essential to how the movies make us feel. Whether it's watching Hamilton as your favorite play or you're taking in a new action movie, there's so much going on that are all these little micro moments that in the movie are planned out, but in the course of our lives, if we actually just notice this tiny little instant opening of all of these details, that is what micro moments is. All it is a snippet of time. It's opening into an awareness of the conscious present moment that really just helps us to notice something different. And so that's what we're talking about today, is cultivating this mindset as a tool for well-being. And really what it is also an entryway into mindfulness, where mindfulness is simply the act of noticing. It's noticing something new. Jon Kabat-Zinn also defines mindfulness as a moment-to-moment awareness of one's experience without judgment. And it's that quality of awareness that allows us to be in relationship to our experience of being alive and to pay active attention. So, active attention in this world where we're constantly pulled in so many directions and have negative biases and news that are, always pulling us in. How do we come back into this concept of having a micro moment and to pay active attention into our lives? So I want to present to you a framework where peace is really a way to orient towards and then engage more fully into micro moments. So peace is just an acronym for these steps that you can practice individually or together, where the first one is P, it stands for pause. So how can you pause to recognize that you're in a micro moment? If you find your mind wandering right now, as it often does, how do we take a moment to say, okay, I'm here, I'm staring at your face, and how do I connect in a different way or notice something different? We can use that as a way to explore internal and external phenomena. How does my body feel right now? How does my breath feel? Is it jagged? Is it deep and slow and calm, or is it sort of uh, going in a really fast way because there's so many things that we're trying to do in our lives? What does that internal body feel like? What are your internal thoughts? Or, look around you. Is there a plant that you notice where you can look at the beautiful green and the shapes on the leaves and notice these details with more openness and curiosity? Then the A stands for accept. So how do we accept the reality of what's going on in our worlds, what's going on in our internal experience of noticing, okay, my body feels a little tight right now and it feels a little uh, not quite settled. How do we accept this and understand, okay, this is where we are without additional judgment? And then from there, I can choose how I want to respond. Maybe we go for a walk to shift our perspective. Maybe if somebody is stimulating us, we respond in a kind, calm way. And then that helps us to enter into the next moment with a little bit more agency and awareness. And so all of this piece is a way to you can take a moment to pause, you can choose, you can notice any one of these as a way to think about how do we want to build more connection and agency throughout our days within our micro moments. So going to the research, we'll talk a little bit about the physiology because we so often forget that we are in our bodies, that we have a body. But all of these are automatic systems going on that can affect our experience with ourselves and how we interact with others. Then there's cognition and the brain, and we'll talk a little bit about the science of how we connect with others when we're more attuned to these micro moments here and now. So let's look at the research behind physiology. Notice the photo of the tiger in the bushes. And what this is really a reflection of how our brains are evolutionarily hardwired to scan for potential dangers, disappointments, dragons, tigers, interpersonal issues. This means that we ultimately develop a negativity bias where we are vigilant today, even when there are no tigers in the bushes. And our sympathetic nervous systems are trained to become active, and it activates our fight, flight, freeze response. Sometimes we see those red notifications on our phone and it triggers the same type of reaction, even if we're not really fighting for our lives or running away from a tiger. And so the result is we don't really get a moment of rest. And instead, we want to be activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for our rest and relaxation response. And so by slowing down and paying greater attention within the micro moments, we can increase the information available to us so that we make decisions that avoid those proverbial paper tigers and which may buffer against stress. And so that's what's been found in the research, just by breathing deeply, taking an inhale, taking a moment of pause, going out and seeing some nature, cultivating some moments of awe, you can actually elicit these different nervous system states. There's a lot of research behind awe that's coming out where it increases our sense of wonder. And as our brain, our default mode networks turn off, our overthinking, our mind wandering, which I'll talk about in a minute, it actually helps us to feel more calm, feel more present, to notice and increase that parasympathetic nervous system response. The other aspect too of going back to the micro and why and how managing our energy really affects how we show up in the world. There's a lot of research on smiles where a genuine or non-polite smile, a non-genuine or polite smile lasts as little as 250 milliseconds, where compared with a genuine smile, that lasts about 1 to 5 seconds, and it's distinguished by lifting the eye muscles and lip corners. So think about when you have that micro moment, you pass a stranger on the street and you share a moment, a micro moment with them of that genuine smile. That actually also gives you a subliminal perception of their smile, and it may have the effect of calming that fight or flight system and helping us feel more connected as well. And so micro moments really, really matter. The research around attention is also really interesting, where orienting towards micro moments and having that active noticing can do a few things. Number one, it can reduce mind wandering. And so there's a study by Killingsworth and Gilbert, which shows that most adults, out of the ones they sampled, we have minds that wander 46.9% of the time, which is really important for planning, for perspection. But I would bet that a lot of us in today's world are constantly trying to plan, and our minds are wandering and trying to figure out what is going on in the world. Instead, by having and noticing the micro moment, we can reduce that endless mind wandering and circles and be able to notice more what's going on in the moment. And as a result of that, it also reduces automaticity, which is the inclination to go on autopilot mode. So when we've learned a complex activity well, when we think we know, maybe we're looking at this research, some of us are thinking, yeah, we actually know this. It's good not to mind wander, of course. We sort of tune out and we stop learning. We become more mindless. And that happens a lot when we are encountering a familiar belief or a task. When we're walking outside, we're not always thinking about how our legs are going one in front of another. And so that's okay. But if we're completely turning off all the time, we lose interest. We're not present. And so instead, the antidote to that is also we want to be able to enhance our attention. We want to rewire our brain. And so having this micro moments mindset or having some mindfulness practices can rewire the brain and help us to enhance that connectivity between the areas where the brain regions that govern attention, emotion regulation, and whole body awareness. It helps us to change our perspectives on ourselves as well. And this is a really, really key of some of my favorite parts of this research. We spoke about physiology already, where research shows that our physiological linkages to positive emotions can broaden our awareness, it broadens our creativity, and it broadens our perspective. So we talked about, what is a micro moment, and it's really what that sounds like. It's a snippet of awareness, and when we are in connection with one another, we have these micro moments of appraisal where positive emotions arise, and we register these prospects to be good. Our systems detect this change, we feel the calm, and our awareness suddenly broadens. So I can notice when I'm in a conversation with a good friend and with a group of people that I feel really connected to, where there's a lot of research at work where, there's all this conversation of how is hybrid going to work? How are we going to improve connectivity? And this is where micro moments of connection can really help, where, it's not always the big moments of going out and having an amazing night, but it's all these tiny little moments of connection that can build high quality connections. It can improve organizational commitment. It buffers against challenging times, but also outside of work for us, it helps us to build that sense of belonging and connection with ourselves and with each other. So going back to this quote of between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. We can now think about how do we apply this peace framework that I previewed earlier, where peace can become in the micro moment techniques that move through each element of the peace progression, or individual capacities that we can purposefully train over time. So again, talking about these individually and just picking one for the week. I've heard from a lot of those that I coach or group sessions, the feedback is actually pause is sometimes the hardest one just to begin with these days. So, maybe pick one today. Think about which one you want to notice that you are in the micro moment, or to bring more agency into, oh, I feel kind of, excited or frozen right now. And how do I want to respond to whatever's going on in the moment or the person around me? So going a little bit into applications, because a lot of this can sometimes seem quite theoretical. Part of what makes micro moments so adaptive and so applicable, especially in this time, is we're not planning the big wow always, right? These are tiny little interactions over days and weeks and months that accumulate. It's intentional opportunities for connection individually, with ourselves, with friends, with other groups. And there's virtual or in-person options. There are many that still have concerns traveling, in this day, and we can't always see our families. And so how do we have these moments wherever we are? So here's a menu of micro moments that present options for individuals, for relational, maybe with another person, and are also communal. So take a moment to, look at what some of these options could be. What is one way that you want to incorporate micro moments of connection for the next week or the next 30 days? If you want to, you can take a moment to close your eyes and think about that for your days. And also think of some ways that you really like to connect. Maybe it's not on here, and maybe it's doing a virtual baking week, or sending a message just to share a recipe if that's what you're into. And so we really want to think about, what lights us up, what lights our friends up and our loved ones up, and how do we want to use this concept of micro moments as a way to connect. Great. So we're going to wrap up a little bit here by really embodying this sense of micro moments. And, one really simple takeaway or method that everybody can do is just take a breath. And so we're going to come back to our seats, feel our feet rooted into the ground, feel our seats in our chairs or wherever you're sitting, feeling supported. Put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. And let your shoulders relax, your jaws relax, your forehead, the back of your neck relax. And feel the sensation here of being in your body. And draw your attention to your belly, where your hands are in contact with your body and your chest. And as you begin to draw in your next breath, notice if this breath is helping your chest rise, or is your belly expanding more? And where we talked about that experience of the parasympathetic nervous system really activating is when we can do that deep belly breath. Like if you're imagining watching a baby sleeping, their whole body expands and rises. And you can really see it when they're exhaling as well. Often we think that we are breathing throughout the days, but actually we may be breathing into our chest. It gets stuck in the areas throughout our bodies. And so don't change anything, and just notice as you take the time to feel the quality of your breath, what that tone, what that speed, what that depth looks and feels like. And just be curious about it. And on your next breath, taking a deep inhalation, drawing it through the nostrils, all the way through the back body, as if you're breathing all the way down through your chair and rooting into the ground. Feeling that deep breath expand your belly and slowly exhaling it all the way out. You can use this breath practice to notice if your inhalations are longer than your exhalations or the other way around. What does it feel like to be in your body and to notice your breath? And now let your hands relax down in your lap. Start returning back to a normal breath, focusing on the quality, the tone, the sounds, the length of the inhalation and the exhalation. Taking a pause to register what it's like and explore that sensation. Accepting that your breath and your body are as they are. How do you want to choose to feel your body and to have your breath throughout the day? How do you want to enter into this next moment? Now, slowly, gently, you can blink your eyes open and come back into the room. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to meet all of you. If you have any questions or want to work with me personally or have any follow-ups at all, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you so much for your time and for taking the time to show up for yourself. Take care.